Hi, Alexis.
Hmm. Hello, Dr. Rachel. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. I'm in kind of recovery mode a little bit, as you know, from having still been a little bit sick this week.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am well also. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting your mentors on Friday, and we had a practice group today. Uh, so I am definitely fueled on people.
Mm,
Um, yeah, all around.
excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
And would you like to introduce today's topic, Rachel?
Sure. I was going to ask you if you wanted to, but we've chosen today's topic uh, to sort of prepare or with the next workshop in mind.
Mhm.
Our next workshop, which is number 2 of 3 in our emotional intelligence workshop series, is looking at values, beliefs, and motivation as part of the self-awareness and that feeds into emotional intelligence. And we posted an article for people to have a look at earlier today from a website called Soul Salt, which was defining your values and beliefs with 102 examples. So that was an article I actually found for a client recently who brought the topic to me that she wanted to get clearer on her core values and do a bit of quite structured work on identifying which values were coming to the surface for her at the moment that might explain why she was feeling in conflict in her life and dissatisfied. And so this is really why we would want to get in touch with our core values. And different values could be sort of coming up for us at different times in our lives. And if we're feeling in conflict or in struggle, it might be a worthwhile exercise to wonder what values, which is closely related to needs, this concept of values and needs, very similar, might be going dishonored or unfulfilled. And it turned out that my client was needing more learning, more challenge, more stimulation than she was getting. And she was giving a lot, but wasn't getting enough back in return. And that was a useful thing. Like, we often say naming it helps us make it very conscious, and then we can do something with it.
Okay, so we're talking about inner conflict, might be weighing up the difference between our values to relieve that inner turmoil when we're not living our values, when there's some incongruence between what we really believe in, what we really long for, and what we're actioning. Is that along the lines that people can be thinking today?
Yeah, yep, and absolutely. And I think this is a lifelong project. It's not like we do an exercise once at high school or in our 20s or at any age on our core values and then we're done. I think it's really worth revisiting over and over again. And it's something I do in one of the therapies I use, acceptance and commitment therapy. They make a big deal of naming your values and looking at your life and seeing if you're living by your values, and living by your values, having purposeful, meaningful living, even when you're stressed, even when you're tired, even when you're anxious. And it is really fantastic ethos. Even though I'm feeling depressed or tired, I can still live by my values, at least to some extent. But if I don't know what my values are, that's very difficult. And I do sometimes occasionally give people a list of values, which you can see a core values list in the article that I sent or posted earlier on our page. But I prefer not to give the list. I actually prefer to ask people questions about what lights them up, what inspires them, what makes them feel alive, what makes them feel relaxed and like themselves, and other people who they've really looked to and admire in life. And that gives us clues about our values without even having to look at at a list. But looking at a list can also be helpful. I don't know. What do you think?
I love your suggestion of the questions because it seems to elicit a more spontaneous response rather than the feeling that I have to come up with some kind of construct. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to do it, particularly because we're talking in the broader context about motivation and the difference between that extrinsic motivation. I should value achievement. That's come up for me in the past, rather than actually, I know I achieve when I really feel purposeful and when I really care about what I'm doing, when I'm aligned with my values, I naturally achieve. So that, yeah, the context of motivation, I think, is entirely relevant. And the questions are a wonderful way to do that.
Well, I wonder if we could ask people who are listening to make this an interactive session.
Yeah.
If you're listening right now, and I think there's 13 people on board, can you type in the comments the name of somebody you really admire? You could tag them if you wanted to, if they're a friend in real life, or you could just say, my cousin, my old science teacher, my former business partner, which is one of mine. So who is it? I'd love to know. Who is it that you admire in your life? Some positive role models who've inspired you to live differently or live more meaningfully. They may be famous. They may be characters in a book. They may be people you know. But put in the comments, who do you consider to be a role model and why? What is it about them that inspires you? What qualities do they possess? What kind of actions or behaviors do they enact that you would like to emulate, perhaps? Does anyone come to mind for you, Alexis?
Yes, plenty. And I'm interested to ask about your business partner in a moment. But the few that come to mind are Dr. Maria Montessori has been a role model for me for a long time. She was the first female to study medicine in Italy, and she has a tremendous story, but essentially she advocated for the child, to help the child do it themselves, and that way of thinking has still not really affected the education system to the extent that I think it should and could. Yeah. So she's one. Eleanor Roosevelt is yes, another woman that I really admire. Steve Jobs really gives me a lot of encouragement, just knowing that he existed and influenced so many industries, not only in the technology space, but the music space and the business space. And my mum comes to mind. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm keen to hear about your business partner, especially having just met her, and what it is about her that you aspire to.
I'd love to tell you because I've put a lot of thought into it. Meanwhile, if you're listening, keep posting. We're going to come to the comments. I can see a few people have answered the question, who do you admire or who has been a positive role model in your life? Mm-hmm. So I've got many also, like you, Alexis, but one is my former business partner, Karen Nixon. I'll have to tag her later. And she and I started North Brisbane Psychologists together and ran it for 4 years until she retired and moved to Mullaney. And one of the things that I love about Karen and that she's taught me is to live unapologetically. Mm. As you saw the other night, Karen is a raging extrovert. She loves to talk and she loves people. And she is unapologetic about that. Mm-hmm. She has a lot to say. She has her beliefs. She's very, she absolutely accepts that other people are different. Mm-hmm. Knowing her as well as I do, she accepts that everyone is different and we have different beliefs, but she has hers and she doesn't apologize for them. And she doesn't seem to have any shame around just putting herself out there and her thoughts and her preferences and her ideas. And if you tell her to shush, she will shush. She doesn't take it badly. And it's this kind of shame resilience that I've seen modeled in her. She'll tell you anything about herself, not to be a show off, but just because she's done her work and she's not ashamed of who she is. And she doesn't seem to put up any pretenses. Anyway, that's a lot to say in answering it, this is what it is for me, for her. And I needed to learn that lesson, and she taught me that.
And have you identified what it is about that was so important for you, Rachel? What was the value that you needed to grab a hold of and own?
I think it's self-belief and confidence, which I guess is very similar. And I'm actually going to defer to the list in that article, because sometimes when you get just the right word, she has a sense of courage. She has a lot of courage, and she owns her power. She owns her power in the world while still being fun-loving and generous and playful and having a really good sense of humor. So I think it's, for me, with her, it's that combination that that I really admired. So sometimes I think of her, this is why I think identifying our values through people we know is so helpful, because we internalize each other, don't we? Every now and then I think of Karen, and I think, what would Karen do in this situation? I'm sure I'm not alone.
It's a powerful way to connect with values, because there's somebody who's embodied it. And usually my sense is that there's it's kind of a unique combination, like you've described Karen's. It sounds like a kind of a conviction, but not at the extent that she's closed-minded, a conviction and an open-mindedness. And, if we just focus on a single value, we're going to miss the balance.
The combination. Yeah. And so do you want to pick one of the role models you mentioned? You mentioned Montessori. Is there another? Why did you say your mum? I'm curious to ask, why has your mum emulated your values? Just what values? Yeah.
And then my mum, well, wow, okay, she's an incredibly independent woman, and she really focuses on everybody's needs. In fact, she's probably lived a very needs-based existence for most of her life. She's constantly attending. She's very aware of other people, and all sorts of, all walks of life. She's indiscriminate in her care, but she has a strong sense of self. So she doesn't seem to, but she also doesn't compromise herself. So, and she's incredibly progressive. She's always been living kind of 15 years ahead of her time. Yes. Entrepreneurial, very creative, but in a way that's, she's on the edge of innovation, I would say. She's never probably really acknowledged that about herself, possibly. Yes, very, very innovative woman.
Yeah. I can't wait to meet her one day.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to make it happen. And so as you think about somebody who's been a really positive role model in your life, and then ask yourself why, you start to get in touch with values. You start to name them, and then you can keep coming back to them. Am I living that to the extent that I could or want to? And I think such a good way to get in touch with values. Let's see what people have said. So Elizabeth said, my sister. Brent said, Richard Branson, my CEO at work. I'd love to know what it is your CEO does that you admire. And Frodo Baggins. Okay.
Frodo, good old Frodo. Never gave up.
And Elizabeth said, my friend Sarah, she's open. She provides genuine safety and no judgment. And she's fun and silly too. That's a great combination. My sister is strong, kind, balanced, keeps growing, and shows love. That's what Elizabeth says.
Before, I'm not online. Is that Libby?
Yes. Awesome. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And then Mia says, two of my sisters, they've paved the way in two different ways for me. The women in this community, this yoga and psychology community. Yes. And complicatedly, my mum. There's the women I'm so very fortunate to work with. In fact, there are so many reasons and not enough time to say. Yes. Melissa Hutton says, my mum was so kind to everyone. And then Mia says, it may sound conceited, but also past versions of myself. I don't think that sounds conceited.
Past versions. I'd love to know what it was about those past versions, Mia, what they had, because it must be in you still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great question. What's our next question, Rachel? What else have you got for us?
Well, the next question is, what inspires you to take action? And trying to recall times when you really took a stand for something or someone. So try and remember a time or a situation where you felt a strong conviction, you spoke up, or you stood for something. And try and remember why you felt so strongly enough to take action. Try and remember the feelings that motivated you to speak up or to act.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of risk, often when we take action, take a stand or speak up, often we're taking a risk. Yeah. We may be risking condemnation. We may be risking conflict. We may be risking rejection. So if you stood up or spoke up, then you took a risk, and you must have felt strongly enough to take that risk. So I guess the question is, why? Why did you take that action? And that will help you to identify what it is you care so deeply about. Does anything come to mind for you on this question, Alexis?
Yes. I can't wait to hear yours. And yes, as you're talking, the risk of rejection resonated for me as very strong, but not so strong as to stop me from fulfilling what I needed to do at the time. So the inspiration to take action really happened. This is the strongest and probably most recent during the floods, when there was very little messaging coming from the city council or local councillors, and I felt a strong pull to take action, and that was really based on a sense of responsibility, and not just in that moment, but even a kind of a responsibility to all of the conditions that had led to my being in a position that I was resourced enough that I felt I could actually contribute. So that was mostly in debt to everyone that had brought me to that place. I felt I can't let you down, and I can't let my community down. And I distinctly remember telling myself, you're going to feel like a dick and you're going to do it anyway. And I just told myself that again and again, Alexis, you're going to feel like a dick and you're going to do it anyway. Excuse the language, but that's the words.
I don't think anyone in this community will be too offended.
I don't think so either. It demonstrates that the fear of rejection was really strong, right. That I just knew that I needed to action on the values. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm hearing values of gratitude come through, values of community, values of compassion and contribution. They're all in there.
Definitely.
And courage.
Yes, thank you.
And which of all those different C words, which of them, or maybe something else, feels like it was the strongest one for you in that situation?
It was definitely contribution, but it feels even bigger than that. It was like, you know what, no one else is doing this, and if I don't do it, it may not get done. It may not actualize. And so just do it. It was a very, very strong impulse, more than imperative. You've given me that word, Rachel, imperative. That's how it felt.
And was it an imperative towards maybe multiple things, right? Community sounds like really a big one, and commitment.
Service. It was service, because I feel I've been the recipient of so much contribution. It felt like a tipping point. Like I cannot justify my existence any longer unless I start pumping out big time in service. And it was a turning point, and I have felt that I have tipped from knowledge building to now knowledge disseminating. Quite a significant turning point for me.
That's beautiful. I love that story. So yeah, I think reflecting on these times in your life really helps you return to those core values.
What about you, Rachel? What inspires you to action, even when there's a risk?
Well, the story that comes to my mind, and it relates to what Sue has just said, watching unfairness to another person where you just can't keep quiet or not do anything. Yes. Mine was the situation many years ago where I felt like my daughter's father was acting unfairly, let's just say, towards her. And it was a phone call where I really needed to, and we rarely spoke on the phone at that time, and we rarely speak now on the phone, but it was just a phone call, but I was very nervous and I had some things to say that were in service to her, to honoring and respecting her needs. So it was around empathy and consideration. And for me, it was around courage to speak up and the risk and protect her and support her and elicit his empathy for her. And it was a risk because, I was thinking he might hang up on me, or he might argue with me and reject what I have to say. And I experienced that as quite a lot of nervousness in my system. And I think from memory, it was years ago now, the phone call went okay, maybe a bit better than I expected. What has stayed with me, though, is the feeling of having stood by my convictions so solidly. And so it was this sense of solidity in my body and in my mind and in myself that was just so deeply satisfying, probably the most satisfying thing in the whole, in the whole story. And it showed me how, how we can really feel at home in ourselves when we do find our voice and speak up for what we know. We can't know. I often say to my clients, I don't know much. We can't know much, but there are a few things that you can know. When you know something in your heart of hearts, and you need to speak up in service of that, then, watch out. You really do need to, because if you don't, and this goes to the third question I wanted to bring, which is the opposite to the question in the article. The article says, when do you feel most like yourself? But we could ask it in the opposite way. When do you lose yourself? When do you disconnect from yourself? When do you start to feel kind of lost, dissociated? When do you kind of have a sense of who am I? Maybe it's a bit of a depression. These feeling states could be giving us a clue that we need to go deeper and look at what values we're not in touch with.
Definitely.
And
I'm loving that you're raising the internal experience. that nervousness that you described, I can absolutely relate to that. Almost like a volcano, like a building, and you just know you cannot hold it in anymore. It just goes against your brain, against the fibers of your being. And the voice, I love that you've put that to it as well, because it is a standing up and a speaking out, isn't it? I mean, all of those sayings about what you stand up to, what you speak out for, that is an embodied experience. I love that you've brought that to my attention, and it is solid. There's a knowing, like you say. There's no second guessing. That is the truth. That is how it is. I mean, whether it's an absolute or not, but it's certainly within your experience. There's clarity.
Yes, and solidness. And so I think if we're feeling out of sorts and maybe a bit depressed, I've had young adult clients come to me and they're almost at the end of a medicine degree or an engineering degree, and they don't know why they can't find the motivation. They just want to quit. And they haven't done it because it lines up with their values. They've done it because other people wanted them to do it, told them they should do it. And so digging in search of our values, excavating our values, really helps sift through our should thinking, our conditioning, how we think we should be, what we think we should do. And we're really going in search of, who am I? What do I enjoy? What do I care about? What do I want for my life? That's such a big, deep, ongoing, lifelong project, asking that one question.
Worth asking, yes. Rachel, can I ask you, may I ask, has there been experiences where you haven't felt yourself that has helped you to identify and crystallize what your values are?
Yeah, well, ironically, you know, my PhD was on professional burnout, and I've experienced a couple of episodes of burnout, which has been such an interesting study. And so, you know, of my own mind and my own life, and experiencing burnout is another opportunity to kind of dig into values around self-care. And like my client who I spoke of, I really resonated with her, and it stuck with me because I also realized that I need new and different kinds of challenges and stimulus that I'm maybe not getting. I think, I don't know, I'm still chewing on it. I'm still chewing on what my values are that are really kind of leading me by the nose right now. Because, you know, the deep unconscious experience and then the words that come out of our mouth are not the same thing, and words are just the map. You know, they're not the actual, you know, courage is not the word courage. It just helps us all orient towards something we know to be courage. And this is why, because of this, the trickiness of language, this is why it can take time. So that was another point I wanted to make today. It's great to look at that article with those 3 questions, look at the list of values. That can be super helpful, but don't beat yourself up if you're still struggling sometimes to know, you know, what are the values I need to live more right now or bring to the surface. And the other thing I want to say, just because we talk about needs a lot on this live stream, is values to me is a bigger bubble, and needs is a subset of values. So what I mean by that is we talk about family being a value. People talk about valuing music, valuing education, and these are all values. I very much value education. But then values is that bigger level. The fine grain level is, well, what needs would be met? And sometimes, is, you know, they're the same. A value and a need can be the same, because if I had my whiteboard, I would draw a circle with needs and then a bigger circle with values. And the next circle out from that could be beliefs and attitudes and then behaviors, because it's almost like there's these layers of our experience that can be quite unconscious through to much more conscious, because needs feeds into values, feeds into beliefs, feeds into attitudes, feeds into behaviors. And that is a model that I'm going to cover in our next EI workshop coming up in July.
Great. I love that model too. And it reminds me of the value of finding our values, of really figuring out who we are, what matters to us, what makes us unique, you know, individuation, the process of individuation.
Yes.
Because whenever I've worked, and this has come about a lot through clinic, you know, as a naturopath, there's been a lot of focus. Generally, when people come in, they expect me to focus on their behavior and to change their behavior. And I found whenever I have attempted that, which, you know, I used to do in my early career, it just caused pushback because the values were not in line with the behavior. And this goes right back to our New Year's resolution conversation about how, you know, when we are in touch with our values, that naturally spills out and influences our behavior. And that's been my experience since working with you, Rachel, since contacting my needs. It's certainly given me much stronger sense of my values, and that has spilled over quite easily into my behavior. So, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that to our attention, and can't wait to hear more on that. But before we go too far away from it, I'd love to hear about this experience you've identified with your valuing self-care and stimulation, and just whether there's something in that for you out of today's discussion? Something that is important to you, and this came about as a result of my question. Has there been something that made you feel not yourself?
Yeah. So when I'm really tired, like most people, I feel like I'm not my best self or in myself in the way I'd like to be. And because stimulation, challenge, connection, these are strong needs of mine, I tend to get my self-care through meaningful activity and through people. And then, as you know, we went and met with two of my old mentors on Friday in Mullaney. And the way that Karen, my former business partner, said to me, she's so blunt. She goes, "Have you been meditating?" You will remember her asking me that.
I do.
And there's something about this is so fascinating to me. The source of the message makes a big difference. The way the message is delivered, the timing of the message, it's so multivariate, right? And there's something about the way she asked me and her timing and everything. It's just like, it just hit me, and I've just recommitted to meditation. And I don't know why, but I just had a little epiphany in those few minutes of her kind of giving me a bit of a hard time about it. But she didn't give me a hard time. I know she was really coming from her own experiences. And I realized, I think that another value, I think, and it is a value more than a need, is balance. That I do get a lot of self-care from learning and intellectual stimulation and human connection. There's a lot of self-care in that for me, but there's self-care that we do when we're by ourselves and it's quiet and peaceful. And the balance between the going in and the going out is, probably just that. It's a return. It's a Saturn returning, because I know it. Well, we all know these things and we just forget. So it was just a coming back to this value around balance in my self-care. That answers your question.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm so glad to hear it, especially knowing you've just come out of COVID. I'm sure we're all relieved to hear that you're doing self-care.
COVID and then the flu. I did have the flu, I realized.
We believe you.
But I didn't believe myself. And then everyone I gave it to, because I was in close quarter, I gave it to all my family, who all were like, "This is the flu." And then I was like, so I had the flu? Oh my gosh. I need to do a bit more self-care.
Self-care. I'm so glad you've got that. And you're reminding me too, as you're talking, that getting in contact with our values is really about a broader value of congruence, which just fits with my seeking of healing and wholeness, is a kind of a seamlessness between my inner values, what's important to me, and my external service, contribution, actions, behavior, choices. Yeah. And the ease that brings, I mean, it's like you say, it's a lifelong learning, and there's still a lot more growth there. But that seamlessness between inner and outer, I believe, is one of the most valuable experiences based on being clear about our values.
Congruence. Yeah, it's a lifelong project, but so important, because without it, we will suffer. So shall we tell people about our July 24 workshop?
Yeah, yes, because it's exactly on this topic.
Yeah.
It is called Motivation More Than Meets the Eye, because I think there is still the thinking that motivation is just about having willpower and not being lazy, and just being driven and ambitious and wanting to achieve. And my experience is the complete antithesis. It's a 180-degree flip from that.
Well, that can be burnout territory, what you were just talking about.
Isn't it? Yes. So we'll be talking about values and meaning and purpose.
Yes.
We have 3 hours together. We have 3.5 hours. And as
So
all of our
it's
spaces.
from 9 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th of July. And do you want to say the location?
Yes, it's at our local boxing gym, U-Box here in Graceville. So that one I will be posting. In fact, yes, I should be able to do that in the next 10 minutes. So keep your eyes peeled for that, because jump on board, make the most of it.
Yes, we would love to see you at our July workshop.
Definitely. And I think that's about all. Keep in mind, everybody, the 4-day retreat in November. Again, stay tuned, but we'll be launching those bit by bit. But join the community, because there's a lot happening, and the group has really just dropped in. I think we've reached a tipping point as a community. Today was particularly beautiful example of that.
Wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. I look forward to coming to the next practice group. Sorry, I wasn't able to
missed you. We missed you. We will see you at the next one.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Thank you, everyone who tuned in.
Yes. And would you mind monitoring the questions and comments after this one, Rach?
I sure will. And I'll post a link to the events page on my website and to that article that we referenced. And yeah, I'll answer any questions people have. And we'll catch you all again, same time next Sunday.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel.
Alexis.
See you, everybody. Good night.
Bye.